Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Farm Energy webinar tonight. Just ask that all of you put yourselves on mute, please, if you're not asking a question or presenting. And this will be recorded and sent around to all of those who registered, so you can watch it on the Connecticut RC&D YouTube page. If everybody can mute that, that would be great. Thank you. So my name is Amanda. I'm with the Connecticut Resource Conservation and Development, and specifically the Connecticut Farm Energy Program. And I'm going to go over very briefly available programs to farms in Connecticut. And then the rest of our speakers will kind of dive into detail for some of these programs. So a little bit about the Connecticut Farm Energy Program. We are a part of Connecticut RC&D, which is a nonprofit organization. And our website is ctfarmenergy.org. You can find information about our programs there, events, and things that we have going on. We have pilot programs at times too. And as well as being a resource, we also offer free technical assistance to farms and ag-based rural small businesses in applying to USDA Rural Development REAP grant program. So we're going to dive into that a little bit tonight as well. So when we think about on-farm energy use in Connecticut, we surveyed farms and found that farms can spend as much as a quarter to a third of their operating costs on energy expenses. And we typically see that the top two ag industries in our state consuming the most energy are usually our greenhouse, nursery, and dairy farms. So if we can think about reducing our energy efficiency, our energy load rather, through energy efficiency or onboarding renewable energy, we can save the farm money and we can supply more energy to the grid. So where do we start? We usually start by thinking about energy conservation first. Many times people will call our office and they're really interested in renewables such as solar. But the low-hanging fruit really starts with conservation and energy efficiency. We don't want to have solar on, a barn or ground-mounted that's powering an inefficient building. And so where do we get started? Usually we suggest that farms think about getting an energy audit. So we'll talk about some options for getting an energy audit. And then once you have an energy audit, you can think about what upgrades or changes that you can make in your operation to reduce your energy load. And then with the help of our program, we can help you accomplish those goals, whether that's through incentives or loans or grants, based on your eligibility and the type of project that you want to complete. We can help you navigate the programs. So I'm going to run through some options for energy audits, and our speakers, like I mentioned, will be diving into this a little bit more detail. Energize Connecticut, that's administered through Eversource Energy and United Illuminating, offer a small business energy advantage program to eligible customers, and that's a free service. It is specific to natural gas and electric use. So it has a little bit of a narrow focus, but it is available to farms in our state. Sometimes farms don't realize that they're eligible for these business programs. Another option is one that we're offering in partnership with NSAVE through funding that we receive through USDA Rural Development. It's a comprehensive option as well as a very specific, if you've already maybe done an audit or you have specific goals or technologies, we can do a targeted audit. There is a 25% cost share on the farm's part, and we pay for 75%. And Lisa will be on tonight to talk about that. Another option is our partners at USDA and RCS. And they offer an ag energy management plan, again, very comprehensive in nature, looking at the overall operation in the farm. And there is usually a cost share on the farm's part. The difference between our program and this program, we take applications on a rolling basis, and RCS, like their other EQIP programs, have fiscal year funding deadlines. So you can apply for an audit during their open periods. And then once you've had an ag energy management plan with them, which is an audit, you can then go back to them for incentives to install those measures that they're suggesting. And so high level funding, we're going to dive into rural development tonight and the REAP program. As I mentioned, NRCS also has available funding. You cannot use both of them to accomplish a project, but rural development's REAP program is for efficiency and renewable. NRCS's programs are only for efficiency. And USDA FSA, which is Farm Service Agency, also has some loan options. And then we're going to dive into the state and local options for funding and incentives as we proceed tonight. So what is REAP? REAP is Renewable Energy of America program. It's part of the Farm Bill. And what can you use it for? You can use it to purchase renewable energy systems, make energy efficiency improvements, and there's also a loan component. So the grants are 25% of eligible project costs. And there's also an opportunity to get a loan in addition to the grant. I will say most of the farms we work with are primarily only interested in the grant portion. What can't it do? So it can't offer any kind of incentive on residential. So if you want to do a residential project with your farm, we have to ensure that the majority of power is going to the farm, and the grant will only incentivize that business portion, not the residential. It won't incentivize efficiency improvements for new construction. There are other programs, Jillian's going to talk about that. It's not for equipment, and it's not meant to incentivize vehicles either. So this is kind of a snapshot of eligibility. If you contact our office, we'll walk you through all of this and ensure that you and your project are eligible to apply for the grant. And USDA offers these grant deadlines twice a year based on their fiscal rounds. And so our next one coming up is October 31st, and then we'll have another one due March 31st of 2022. Sometimes I'm asked, are nonprofits eligible for this program? And if you are not an ag producer nonprofit, then you likely are not going to be eligible. Just nonprofits in general are not eligible for this program. But if you're an ag producer and you meet qualifications, as you may be eligible as a nonprofit. So just some high level kind of information, if you will. We started this program in 2010, and we've helped farms and businesses secure about $5 million in these grants and loans. So that's about 24 million in installed projects. So we know how to facilitate the REAP application process. There's a bit of paperwork, and so we're here to provide that assistance to farms in order to accomplish their project. And we have a variety of goals. Some farms are looking to offset 100%. As you can see in one of the projects we did with Kent Falls Brewery or Oak Ridge, sometimes we don't meet 100%. It's based on capacity of roof size. Other times we are able to meet 100% of the need based on the location. So projects range in size. We've done some really large comprehensive projects, and we've done some smaller projects like with Allen Hill Tree Farm. It's more of a residential scale. So all size of projects. We also have worked in conjunction with the REAP program, and Connecticut Green Bank offers CPACE, which is a financing option, and Ray from Litchfield Hill Solar is going to go into that tonight. Some examples of farms who've taken advantage of that program are Botticello in Manchester and Running Brook in Killingworth. So they were able to leverage the CPACE in conjunction with the REAP grant. Some more examples. I like to just run through some photos. Sometimes it's nice to see a familiar face, farm in your neighborhood, or someone you know. But as you'll see, there's a variety of agriculture types and projects that we've serviced through the years. Primarily solar when it comes to renewable, but we'll be talking a little bit about geothermal as well. And we currently have a geothermal pilot program where we can offer a free site assessment to those who are eligible. We also do work with, we had a pilot project on compost heat recovery. We also work with dairy farms on anaerobic digester projects. So if anybody's interested in more details on that, you can feel free to reach out to me. I just want to throw this slide in to have people think about what's kind of going on around us and beyond. There's a lot of talk about ag land use versus solar. And in some ways, there's opportunity for them to be working together. So in Vermont, the top left picture is a open view farm who has sheep that are under the panels when it gets hot and for refuge. Massachusetts has an example of other livestock with solar. Minnesota encourages pollinators, and then in Europe, there's examples of folks actually growing under the panels with the height and the spread of the panels accommodating that. So we have a couple links that we can share with you all. You can go to UConn's YouTube page, or you can go to ours. We have some examples of farms and what they have to say about their experience and their energy projects, which is sometimes helpful. I am out of the Yukon Extension in Haddam, and this is my contact info. And your state rural development office is out of Windsor, and David Brown is the point of contact there. I'm going to encourage everyone to use the chat as we go along. If you have any questions, we'll try to address them after each speaker. And then any questions we can't get to, we'll finish at the end of the workshop. I'm not sure if anybody on has any questions. You can unmute yourself and ask, or pop them in the chat. Okay. Not seeing any. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. And I'm just checking to see, there she is. Colleen Morrison from United Illuminating is joining us. And Colleen is going to be presenting on the Small Business Energy Advantage Program. Colleen, are you ready?
Yes.
Great.
Hi, I'm Colleen Morrison. I recently joined our conservation team at UI in January. Prior to that, I've been working with the company for about 10 years, managing different parts of the business, but happy to discuss the small business program. Are you going to be presenting my presentation?
Whatever you prefer, Colleen.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, that would be great.
Let me just get that open for you.
Okay.
Are you seeing it, Colleen?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do have a small business program that both UI and Eversource jointly manage. So, depending on wherever your farm is in Connecticut, we can offer the same value to you with that territory. So if you want to go to the next screen. The value of the program really is to make sure that we can lower your electric and gas bills, lower your maintenance costs, optimize your building performance, improve lighting quality, reduce your environmental footprint, and grow your bottom line and stay competitive. I'm going to go to the next slide. Some agricultural opportunities. The largest savings we see are in the motor systems, especially irrigation pumping, on-site transportation, and lighting energy end uses. These three can potentially reduce energy costs by 10%. Dairy opportunities to save energy include energy efficient lighting, ventilation, milk cooling, water heating, and vacuum pump motors. We do see greenhouse energy saving solutions that can include simple operational changes, upgrades to more effective lighting and advanced controls, more efficient heating, cooling, and watering systems. And I know indoor urban farming is also expanding in Connecticut, and we offer energy efficiency opportunities there. Renewable energy systems can also help lower your energy bills, letting you plow savings back into your farm. And next, I'm going to talk about how it works. So when you contact us, we'll match you with a qualified contractor. They're going to schedule an in-person energy audit at your location. It's a free audit, so you're not paying for anything upfront. They will give you a proposal, which is going to show you what your estimated incentive dollars are, your energy savings, what the simple payback would be, and your projected annual savings. We want to try and get you into a cash positive scenario from the start. So they'll give you access to a catalog of fixed price measures, which will include mostly lighting upgrades, refrigeration improvements, and domestic hot water, aerators, spray valves, shower heads, anything like that would, help you at your location. If you want to go to the next slide. After they go through that with you, it comes back to the utility, and we go through the approval process. We, have it run through our engineers and make sure that everything aligns. And then once we pass it back to that vendor, we have, 25 in the UI territory that are vetted out and have done training with us to make sure that everything is consistent. You'll work with that vendor to develop a construction plan and install date. Depending on the cost of the project, we may or may not conduct a post-inspection. Once it's installed, we pay the contractor and then apply the loan to your specified utility bill. So it doesn't matter if you're doing electric or gas or both, it all ends up on your electric utility bill if you take a loan with us. Right now, we're offering a 6-month deferral on that as well because of COVID. So you're not putting out any money up front during the process, and you don't have to start paying it back for 6 months after the installation and we close out the project. So to be eligible in the small business program, your average 12-month usage is below 200 kilowatts. It has to be, at least 6 to 12 months of usage history. So if you're a new farm, sometimes we will bend on that rule to get it going for you. But typically we want to see the 6 months of usage. And if you fall above that bracket, or if you're on a rate that doesn't qualify, we'll match you with an appropriate program that fits your business. So we have some large commercial programs, and then we have residential programs too. And, your farm may actually involve a commercial project and a residential project, so that it benefits you in both places. To be able to finance your project, you have to have at least 6 months of on-time payment history with us. And you can also be on a payment plan, which we've never offered on commercial businesses until COVID hit. Now we are doing some COVID payment assistance plans. So even if you're on that, we still will give you the 0% financing with an on-bill repayment up to $100,000 on a loan for your farm. Again, we do offer 6-month deferments on new loans. And if you don't qualify for our financing, we are rolling out another option in the next month where we're offering third-party financing through another vendor that will give you a loan, but there will be, a small interest rate. And it will be an off-bill loan with them directly. So there is plenty of options for that. And if you want to go to the next screen. So for smaller farms, the best starting point is really, you know, the full service energy efficiency program, to have them come out, do that free audit by our vendors. There are incentives up to 65% of the project cost. And we do have the interest-free financing. So the 65%, that's the rebate that comes back. And you're not paying that back to us. You're only going to pay the loan back to us. And so that is an option that we have. Again, larger farms, we do have other options for that. If you fall outside of the 200 kWs, we can submit you through other commercial programs, such as our Energy Opportunities program or our Energy Conscious Blueprint program, that can give you some other bigger rebates outside of what we can offer. So to get started, you would go to our Wise Use, either the Energize CT website. You can email us or call us, and they'll connect you to the right program and the right department, so that we can get you going, set you up with a vendor. If you already know a vendor in your area, we can check and see if they are part of our program already and set you up with an audit. And they would just come out and set up that appointment. If you want to go to the next screen. Okay, and so that's pretty much what I have for today. Does anybody have any questions about that offer? No.
I
And
don't
again,
see any right now, Colleen.
okay, so again, it is offered through UI and Eversource. We do have a small business program in both places. So just wherever your farm is located, if you go to the Energize CT website or call the number, they will definitely set you up with a vendor that participates in our program in any part of Connecticut.
Thank you so much, Colleen.
You're welcome. Nice
So
to meet
next-
all of you.
So next up, we have Jillian. And Jillian is joining us from Eversource Energy, and she's going to be talking about the new construction program this evening.
All right, and I will share my screen. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So I'm on the other side. I work for Eversource, as Amanda said, but I am presenting on behalf of Energize Connecticut. So these incentive programs are available wherever you are in Connecticut, as long as you're within Eversource or Avangrid territory. So I'm going to jump into the new construction. I'm going to take a deeper dive into our new construction program, which, as Amanda was discussing, some of the grants aren't eligible for incentives, but we do have an energy efficiency program to cover some of that equipment. So Eversource, hold on, let me move that out of the way. So Eversource and Avangrid offer 3 programs. Small business, just covered, great option. It's an easy program to work in. You get a 0% on-bill financing, no costs, energy audits, and I think a lot of farms are eligible to participate in that program. If you are not eligible for small business or you want to go a different route, we have a new construction program, and we can cover up to 95% of the incremental costs of equipment. And what that means is if you're looking at 2 different pieces of equipment and one is a lot more expensive than the standard piece of equipment, we can pay for almost the difference between the 2, just to get you to choose that more efficient energy efficient piece of equipment. And we have a large retrofit program, and that's called EO, it's Energy Opportunities. And if you're not a small business, we can still provide incentives through the EO program. Through these 3 programs, we're really trying to cover the market. And the big takeaway of the presentation for Energize CT is if you are interested in making energy efficiency upgrades, call us and call us early. So jumping into new construction, what does that mean? New construction, it means ground up new construction, pretty simple. Major renovations, you're doing an addition or you've acquired a new property and you're going to make a bunch of upgrades. New equipment and equipment replacement also kind of fall into this bucket where we look at, okay, there is an equipment currently there. LED grow lights are a great example, and you're interested in installing new equipment. So we'll just establish a baseline. We won't look at what's there because nothing's there, but you're still eligible for ECB incentives. what common measures we see in the ag community. We're seeing a lot of LED grow lights go in. Obviously, grow lights use a lot of energy, so if you can choose an LED one, that's a great option. Refrigerations, energy efficiency fans, VFDs, motor upgrades, lighting controls, specialized ag equipment. If there is a piece of equipment that you're installing and there's a better option, and we can demonstrate that you can save energy by choosing that better option, we can consider it for energy efficiency incentives. Something else I've been seeing is air compressors. Air compressors use a ton of energy. If you have an air compressor and you keep repairing it, maybe you're looking at installing a new one, come to us early. So just jumping into one measure, I'm not going to go through all of them, but LED grow lights are just a very simple example to explain of what's out there for the farming community. We can incentivize 75 to 95% of the incremental cap, 95% for new construction, 75% for retrofit non-new construction applications. The way we do it is we compare a baseline light, which could be a high pressure sodium 1000-watt grow light, to the LED light, which could be 600 watts. So you're going from 1000 watts to 600 watts. We calculate that energy savings. And while the incentive is intended to help you pay for these LED grow lights, the real energy savings and cost savings is in you running these lights. What is the cost to run these lights throughout the year? So we can think of the incentives as really kind of that instant perk, but what's your operational cost? That's where the real savings are. To incentivize LED grow lights, they do need to be DLC certified. And if you don't know what that means, just come ask us, and there's a list, a third party keeps this list of lights that are tested. We want to make sure that you're buying tested equipment, and we'll provide that list to you so you can choose an LED grow light on that list. All right, I have a case study here, and I included the link to the video. Let me see. If I play the sound, I'll only play it for like a minute, but this is a great case study that Oak Ridge Dairy did. They came through a new construction program. We looked at a variety of equipment across the board, including fans, lights, some of their milking machines. And we walked through them. We looked at equipment we've never looked at before, and they qualified for energy efficiency incentives. So I'm just going to play the first minute. And Amanda, if you don't hear the sound, let me know so I can stop playing.
Okay. We're not hearing it, but maybe you could walk us through it.
You're not hearing it?
No.
All right. Well, okay. I'll let that be. It's a really good video. It's in the slide deck. I encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about the new construction program, just go right into the slide deck and look it up. All right. So what are the incentives? I said 75 to 95% of the incremental cost is covered. What does that mean? It comes down to the more kWh or CCF you save, the more incentive dollars are on the table. So you can be capped by incremental cost, or you can be capped by how much you're saving. 40 cents per kWh, $6 per CCF. These are some of the largest incentives you'll see throughout the country that I've seen, particularly for CCF. So there's a lot of money on the table right now for your projects. We do have prescriptive incentives, which are a little bit easier to understand. For lighting, it's based on square footage. So if you have 1,000 square foot barn that you're putting up, the LED lighting incentive is up to 50 cents per square foot. So that's some easier math. When we get into HVAC, it's based on tonnage, but we'll walk you through what you can expect if you choose energy efficient equipment. When to reach out early. Reach out when you're thinking about the project before you purchase the equipment. We can do more if you're able to reach out early. We can say, okay, if you go for this unit and it has this energy efficiency rating, you can qualify for incentives. But the farther you are down the line, there is less we can do. And what information do we need when you reach out? We need a project description, what's going on, what's the address, and what stage are you at? Are you thinking about buying equipment, or did you already purchase equipment? Once equipment has already been installed, it does not qualify for new construction energy efficiency incentives. And the process. So contact us early. I can't say that enough. We'll do an energy savings review and see how much you're eligible for. We'll put together an incentive agreement. Then we step away, you install the equipment, we go through an inspection and measure verification, and we make the final payments. I included some links to more information you can grab off our website, which is here on the energizeconnecticut.com. And then I included contact information, which includes my contact information. I actually work on the retrofit team. So if you have any large projects, you can come to me. My colleague, Jordan Schellens, works on the new construction team, along with Brendan Mark, who is from UI. And then there's a couple other links below. I think somebody was gonna talk about our solar program, but the emails are there. Demand response, another program we offer, emails are there. But like I said, just contact us early. We're here, we're available, and we're happy to help. All right, and that is all I have for you.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, not seeing any. I know Lisa from NSAVE is having a little bit of issue trying to get on. She's joining us from Vermont. So Peter, I'm not sure if you're ready, if we could have you go, and then when Lisa can join us.
That would be fine, Amanda.
Okay.
Would you like to show the slides?
I can share the slides for you,
Share
Peter.
mine? We could go ahead.
Whatever you prefer.
I think it's easier if you do. There are quite a few slides we'll try to get through in 15 minutes, but we'll spend a few seconds on each and we'll be fine.
Okay. Or your audio is a little low. So did you say you'd like me to share?
Yes. You know what I'm going to do is I think this is better audio, right?
You just sound kind of faint, Peter.
Let's see. Put on maximum. This should be better audio, right?
A little bit.
Okay. Let's go through these slides. We're starting here. Wait a minute, back up for a second.
Okay.
Does everybody recognize these Scottish Highland cattle? This is out in Harwinton at Scott Regalia's farm. Aren't they cool? Go ahead, please. We had this promotional brochure here. It was developed by the Connecticut Farm Energy to encourage applications for free geothermal assessments that I give and a possible 25% REAP grant. Okay, next. Eligible farms and small businesses who are approved by Connecticut Resource Conservation Development, Inc. for the Rural Energy Development Assistance. Meet with me of Litchfield Geothermal, and we go through what your heating and cooling needs are for your farm. Okay, so here's how geothermal or ground source heating and cooling works, right? Energy comes from the 50-degree ground, and we use that energy. Next, Amanda.
I'm still having a hard time hearing you, Peter. I'm sorry.
All right, I'll speak up. I don't know why that is. I do Zoom all the time. Okay, I'll speak a little louder. All right, so here's an example of a plan that we put together last month. It features two 450-foot deep boreholes, 30 feet apart, with a 4-foot trench to a circulating pump and a 6-ton water-to-water heat pump in what will be a new greenhouse in this location. Okay, so 3 loops work together from left to right: the air loop in the ducts, the refrigerant loop in the heat pump, and the water loop in the ground. Okay, so that light green shows the scheme for the pipe that goes into the ground and picks up the 50-degree heat. It goes into the building at about 45 degrees and it goes out at 40 degrees or so. And that 5 degrees is enough to bring heat through the refrigerant and into a duct system or a radiant system. Okay, so a typical ground loop is about 450 foot deep for a 3-ton heat pump serving about a 1,500 square foot building. So you can get a sense of scale of how many boreholes you would need depending on how much heating load you have in your building. The borehole is drilled by water well rigs with 6-inch diameter steel casings set to the bedrock ledge. And there's about 1 yard of drill cuttings produced for each 100 feet of depth. They're controlled with a silt fence. So that 450 foot borehole is going to bring about 4.5 cubic yards of this pulverized granite or Arcos to the surface that we deal with. Then rolls of high density polyethylene loop pipe are installed. After the required depth is drilled, the U-bend is unrolled down into the borehole. You can see the U-bend at the very bottom of that image. That's Connecticut Wells drilling on a big commercial job for us. 900 feet of polyethylene pipe would be installed in a 450 foot deep borehole, right? Then after that's in, a grout rig arrives usually the next day after the drill rig finishes drilling and placing the filled loop with water in the borehole. So they're going to put those bags of grout through the hopper and pump that into the borehole too. The borehole is grouted from the bottom to the top to allow heat to move quickly to and from the water within the pipe into the soil or bedrock. No groundwater is pumped in a closed loop system that is prevalent in Connecticut. Urban open loop standing column type wells are really not covered in this presentation. The water's just not pure enough to send it through the heat pump without scaling, so we use closed loop. So here's a typical cross section that I made, okay? You can see the casing, the 6-inch steel casing goes down to bedrock, usually 20, 30, 40 feet deep. Then they drill into the rock where the hole will stay open on its own. And they install the U-bend, and then they grout it with the red dots that we see as grout. Then we dig a trench to the building, and we cut away the casing, and we heat fuse 90-degree elbows at the top of the borehole, and we bring the pipe into the building and into a circulator pump so that all the water flows all the way down 450 and back up, almost 1,000 feet of pipe with water that's picking up heat and bringing it into the building. Thank you, Amanda. Trenching for vertical boreholes or horizontal loops must start at the building, like here. Okay, after the trench is dug and casings are exposed, they are cut below the frost level. So here with the torch, they're going to cut that steel. And then the casing tops are removed as the grout, which has a peanut butter consistency, plops out. Okay, so we know that grout went all the way to the top. Then the 90-degree elbows are heat fused from the vertical loop to the horizontal loop pipe. We use heating iron, no glue or metal clamps in the ground. It's all just the pipe and melted pipe that will last for 100 years. Then the loop pipe enters the building, usually below the ground, after the concrete or block coring is done. Here, 4 boreholes supply and return loop lines, and they enter the building as shown. So this would be about 12 tons, about 3 tons of heating capacity per borehole, times the 4 loops gives us about 12 tons. We use link seals to prevent groundwater from leaking into the building. Loops are pressure tested. Usually for a greenhouse or a farm application, we can go through soil and we don't have a basement application, so we don't need link seals. But for common coring through concrete, this is what's done to keep the area dry. A typical loop with a circulator pump and split heat pump with a copper connection is shown coming to an air handler. So you see the water comes in, it goes through that circulator pump with the two motors into the heat pump and then back out again into the ground. Meanwhile, from the heat pump, we see the line set, the copper refrigerant line that's insulated and the return copper that we see that's uninsulated. So here's what's happening inside a coaxial heat exchanger. The turbulent water and antifreeze, usually propylene glycol, is on the inside of the coaxial heat exchanger. And on the outside of the copper pipe, but inside the black steel pipe, is the R410A refrigerant. So the 50-degree or 45-degree water will heat up the refrigerant that's at about minus 20 degrees. And then we take that refrigerant and we bring it to the compressor. Okay. Inside a package heat pump, we see two heat pumps, one for ducts, which are in the basement, the package unit, and the split unit below has a refrigerant line to a distant air handler in another part of the building. Two wall-mounted pressurized circular flow pumps are shown in between. Okay, the building is analyzed for heat loss and gain through the ceilings, walls, floors, windows, doors, and infiltration. Usually we're doing a heat loss analysis for a greenhouse in many of the cases for our customer farmers in Connecticut. But the greenhouses have very poor insulating value, and therefore the heat loss becomes very high, and you need a lot of equipment and a lot of boreholes if you're going to heat a greenhouse. But we do analyze them. Then we use software to calculate the loop depth based on bedrock thermal conductivity and building heat gain. So once we know what kind of rock we have and how much heat we need, we can put it in a program and it'll tell us how deep to drill. It's based on the length of loop needed to heat and cool the building. That's a complete roll with a U-bend as it comes from the factory. If you want to know what kind of rock you have, you can check past driller's log. A lot of times we'll go out there and the farmer will have a well log. So we'll have an idea of about what kind of rock and how deep the bedrock is and what to expect. And then once we know the kind of rock, we know what kind of thermal conductivity it has, and we can design from there. Better thermal conductivity means less drilling costs for the same heat. A lot of times we go to the Connecticut Bedrock Map, we look at our site, and we can see what kind of rock we expect in that area. This is something that we would put in our assessment report every single time. We show where the farm is and what kind of bedrock is there. And then after the amount of borehole and the size of the heat pump is known, we put together a site plan for each job. In this case here, we were showing 8 potential boreholes to serve those 2 buildings with 30-foot diameters, or really 20-foot on center radius is shown. Then each of the farms and rural businesses is analyzed and is provided with a site plan. Some more examples. In this case, we plan to convert a well to a borehole. An existing unused well could be converted and the loop and the grout could go in there and the farmer can save on drilling costs. And this is another example of a possible pond. You could actually put a loop into a pond and restore it. And in this case, we were going to do a horizontal loop instead of drilling. And we were going to save on digging costs with the spoils from a dredged pond. Another example here of just a horizontal loop that could be dug by a backhoe, without having to cross a road in this case. The loop goes out of the building and back into the building. And just another sample plan. Usually we like to specify 2 pipes about 5 to 7 feet deep in a trench, about 2 feet apart. And we if we're digging anyway, we could put 2 pipes in, and that seems to be an economy of scale. And here's another example. Actually, we're going to put the heat pump into near a drain that had to be dug anyway. Here's something else, a proposed borehole location, single borehole to do the office and laboratory in a farm area. And from Google Maps, we can show 2 500-foot boreholes where they would be relative to the barns. After we do that, we estimate the cost with a return on investment, and we show about when the payback would be depending on the cost and the cost after the REAP grant and the Energize Connecticut rebate. So in this example here, payback would be in 15.9 years. We have a question from someone. That's good, but I'll take it at the end. We have just a few more. Go ahead, please, Amanda. So farm and rural businesses are encouraged to follow up by contacting the contractors list with the Connecticut Geothermal Association to get a trained and certified installer to do the work instead of using a contractor that's not familiar with geothermal installations. So we did have a question, Amanda. What was that question?
Yeah, so I think a couple of questions. One is the ground air heat transfer system. So I'm not sure if maybe Jillian or Colleen are on, want to talk about any incentives from the utility on that. And then another one is, does anyone know about geothermal earth heat tubes?
Shall we let the utilities go first?
Sure. I don't know if I'm gonna get at the exact questions, but I think we're talking about like what type of geothermal incentives do we offer? We don't offer incentives for digging or the whole system. We do offer incentives for heat pumps, water source heat pumps, if you choose energy efficient equipment. It is something we want to support, but we can only provide incentives where we are able to claim energy savings. So it was actually really good to hear, Amanda, that there was an option for doing some geothermal testing, because that's been a big barrier. Is this the right site for it to begin with?
And then Peter, do you want to take the question about the geothermal earth heat tubes?
What was the last word, please?
And then the heat tubes use a 10 to 12 foot hole and use air passing through the depth of the hole.
Yeah, cube, C-U-B-E.
Tubes, yep.
Cube, yes. I've never seen one, and that's like a modification of the horizontal trench system. The problem with the cube is that you're asking a little bit of earth to do a lot of work. If you could probably fit water in a cube that's only the size of a room, but you're not going to be able to draw the heat off enough. And as you continue to return the water 5 degrees colder each time, it's going to chill that surrounding soil or rock. That's why you need a certain volume. That's why we have to go down 450 feet with our borehole to get 3 tons. We can't just put 100 feet in. It's not enough. And it's not necessary to go 1,000 feet. The studies for what the heat draw out of the earth is in the calculation. So if you have a cube, even though you may have 900 feet of pipe, if it's not exposed to a lot of volume and mass of rock that's constantly getting warm because it's massive, then it's not going to work. So you'll be spending a lot of extra electricity on your compressor because you're really not going to be moving the heat as efficiently as you could.
Can you talk a little bit about payback too, Peter? We've really seen with the assessments, we've done kind of a variance in payback. And so everyone has a different threshold for return on investment. And there was kind of a question about that, you know, if it's a 15-year payback, is it worth doing a project like this?
Right. Well, 15 years for a farm is not really a long time. The way people move, most residential people probably would not do it. It really depends on a lot of factors. The reason that we're getting high numbers is because greenhouses in Connecticut that would love to be able to supply winter vegetables when no one else can. They would love to do that. But the reason it's not done is because it's so expensive to heat a greenhouse. You're trying to get the sun in, so you can't block the sun out with thick insulation. And when you want the sun and the light in, then you're going to have the polycarbonate sheathing over the greenhouse. And we have to assign that a very low insulation value, which is true. It's not like a 2x4 or a 2x6 wall or a 2x10 in a house with 12 inches of insulation. So when we run the numbers, our greenhouses get quite expensive to heat by geothermal if you cannot insulate it. And that's what we've learned in the 20 farms that we've done, that the greenhouse people are reluctant to go for paybacks that might be in the 40 or 50 year range because, greenhouses just, a greenhouse will use multiple times as much energy as a conventional house of the same size. What else can I say about it though? Others were low, Amanda. When you have an office or some ancillary part of the farm, then those paybacks are worth it. And the fact that you can get the tax credit from the government for 10% and finance it at low interest rates is another attractive way for cash-strapped people to say, well, I'll take the incentives now and I'll just pay back the loan as the business progresses. Maybe you'll be paying it back in inflated dollars in the future. So I would suggest that a lot of times you go for it, even if the payback does seem kind of high.
I think another lesson learned too, Peter, is if you have a relatively efficient heating system already, the return on investment isn't always very attractive. But if you're doing new construction or doing a replacement of system, this is more competitive.
That's right. If you have to put a system in anyway, because your old one broke down and you have the time, then you get the savings of what it would have cost to put in a combustion, a propane boiler or something. Then that helps the payback as well when that occurs. That's correct, Amanda.
So we have some more questions about you being available to discuss this further. And I would say if you visit our website, ctfarmenergy.org, we do have this pilot program available. And so the way it works is you sign up. There's an intake form. And if you're eligible, we refer your application to Peter. He'll schedule a site visit with you. He comes out, does that site visit, and then produces a really detailed, comprehensive assessment for you and a report with those numbers that are specific to your farm. That was the point of this pilot project, was to give folks that information. There's kind of a lot of unknowns when it comes to geothermal and farms. And so sometimes it makes sense and sometimes we've seen it doesn't, but at least we've kind of removed that barrier of question.
That's right. Every farmer that goes through this knows a lot more about energy usage and heat loss, and they can think in terms of how to improve their farm, even if they don't go forward with the geothermal at this time.
Right. Thanks, Peter. If there's no other questions. Okay, thanks, Peter. I don't think Lisa's been able to join us from NSAVE. So I'm going to look to Ray. Ray, are you ready to share?
Yes, let me see. Open this up.
So Ray first comes to us from Litchfield Hill Solar, and Ray has worked on numerous solar projects with us in conjunction with the REAP grant. And so Ray's going to go through some of the things that you might want to think about financially when considering solar for your farm. Take it away, Ray.
Okay, is everybody seeing the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, that's my very catchy title. So I'll go right past that. Yes. Hang on. It doesn't. Anyway, fair disclosure, I am a solar installer, but this is a totally informational session, not a sales pitch. But there's my card if you want me to ask any specific questions when the presentation is over. Okay, let's see. Okay. So in the presentation tonight, we've heard about many of these things. Welcome to the wonderful world of energy acronyms. I'm going to just discuss briefly the first three on this list. Amanda just handled the fourth and a little bit of the fifth, and we've heard about the sixth. And I'm also might touch on CPACE a little bit, but mostly the first three. Now, right here, I should admit that this won't be as informative, precisely as informative as a presentation I would like to give, because the programs are changing. The options that are offered to a person installing solar farms and agribusiness are going to change in 2022. However, all of these points, number 1, 2, and 3, that I'm going to talk about will somehow be incorporated into the new program. So you still need to know what they are. And number 1 is the cost you avoid through net metering. How a net meter efficiently uses your solar system to feed it back to the grid for credit when you're producing more than you're using, and also allows you to draw that credit back down when you're not producing what you need. Basically, you don't have to understand it technically, except to see under takeaway number 1, net metering is a way of allowing you to get credit for all the electricity you produce in this climate zone that we're in, where the seasonality and the solar production is not necessarily in sync with the usage. And a net metering option will continue to be available under the new program. So it's not going away in spite of what we heard. Quick graph about how it works. In the top bell curve, you see the blue is all the production throughout the months of the year of your solar, more in the summertime than in the wintertime. And if you look at the lower graph, you see that the green on the top was sold to the utility or credited to the customer during that part of the year when there was overproduction. And during the winter months, you see the brown, that's when the customer had to buy it back, actually draw down his credits or her credits from the utility. So over the course of the year, the solar system actually was able to generate all more than the electricity that this facility needed, even though it wasn't necessarily producing it at the same time it was needed. So that's number 1, net metering. Number 2 is the investment tax credit, which applies to many of the programs that we're talking about today in various ways and various amounts. For solar, it was 30% several years ago, ticked down to 26%, was supposed to drop to 22%, then it was reinstated at 26% to the end of 2022. I wouldn't worry about any of that, except takeaway number 2 is if you're thinking about solar at all, better look into it sooner rather than later. So as you can see, it's not going up, only down. So number 3 is something that confuses a lot of people, renewable energy credits. Excuse me, in this case, zero emission renewable energy credits. The zero meaning there were no emissions, gaseous emissions in the making of this electricity. These are valuable, and the utility wants you to make them. They want to buy them from you because they're required to produce a certain amount of clean energy every year, an increasing percentage. If they can't do it themselves, then they can invest in programs that will have other people invest in solar or other renewable energy forms. So basically, the ZREC has a market value, and the programs that are being devised right now are going to be a new way so that you can take advantage of that investment in solar, those production of those renewable energy credits. Now this one, don't be scared and run away, because we're not going to go into it in too much detail. If you can put all of these things together, the ZREC credits, the federal tax credit, and the net metering advantage of cost avoided, you have a really, really fine payback, especially if you're a family farm enjoying an 01 residential rate. You can see here, and I won't go into it, the red at the side, a $43,000 system can tick down to $32,000 if you work with Amanda to get a 25% USDA grant. A federal tax credit can drop that another $8,448 for a lower final cost, excuse me. And then if you add in the ZRECs per year that you might get, which will, on this particular system, would generate $1,677 a year, $25,000 over system life. Then you add that to your energy cost avoided, and what you get is this. And I apologize for the small print, but you can see your cash flow from your investment of $24,000. At year 5, you've turned it around and you have a positive cash flow. This is as good as it gets in the renewable energy business. And unfortunately, it's going away. The new program will be generous. It won't be as generous as this system, as this program. The next thing we want to talk about is rates, because I think we have two different audiences here. One is family farms that still enjoy the 01 residential rate, and the other is the agribusinesses, which have a rate 30. The residential rate, the entire cost of each kilowatt hour used is all bundled together. So if you avoid using one, you realize that much cost avoided, full retail price of a kilowatt hour. If you're commercial rate 30, it's a little bit different. When you install solar, you're only really avoiding the generation rate on your bill, not the demand charges and other delivery charges. That's a problem. It's been a bit unfair for rate 30 people, but there's also new rates coming out for rate 30 people and rate 27 people that will allow them, will more generously compensate them for solar. And again, that's part of the new program. We'll see those rates very soon. But the takeaway here is that solar payback is generally better for a rate 01 than a rate 030. You probably know who you are, but it's right there on your electrical bill. You want to check that. So, sorry, I'm a little dry. There are, so what are the new options for compensation? There's going to be 2 of them. One is a buy-all tariff. You install your solar and the utility purchases all the clean energy that you produce at a fixed rate. The compensation and quarterly payments is based on an amalgam of both your cost avoided and the benefit of those ZRECs that we talked about. It's a rate that's going to be set by the utility, approved by PURA, the Public Utility Regulatory Authority, and they'll give you a contract for a 20-year term. You'll still be allowed an option of the net metering. It'll be very similar to what we have right now, but it's going to be net metered on a monthly basis, rolling over and crediting with a monetary value any excess production. So it's very similar to what's happening right now. And again, it's a 20-year contract, so that's pretty good. And you get to choose up front. So what is this new buy-all tariff rate? We don't know, but it's coming out very, very soon because you're supposed to be able to apply for it in 2021. I think possibly in the next few weeks, you'll be reading news of it in the papers, or if you have somebody who's in the energy business, they'll be able to tell you. Whatever it is, it's supposed to be something that fairly reflects the rate of the cost avoided plus an addition that reflects the value of ZRECs to the utility. So they're going to leave it to you to decide which of these methods you're going to choose to be compensated for solar installation. And it's interesting because there are pros and cons of both. The buy-all is a fixed and reliable income stream. So you can sit down and you can see exactly how much money you spent and how much money after tax credit and REAP and how much money you're going to get over the next 20 years. And if you like that deal, then that's fine. Sort of set it and forget it. And the good thing is, if you decide to stop farming or offload some really energy hog piece of equipment, you don't worry about that, because you're just going to be compensated for what you produce, even if you don't use it. On the other hand, utility prices may continue to go up, and you'll be paying more on your electrical bill. Remember, you've sold all your clean energy to the utility. You're still going to get the bill for what you use. And you might find that going up, 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 and wondering, what are you doing paying the utility so much for electricity that you're producing over here more cheaply? Excuse me, that can happen. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. Net metering, the other option, is going to give you greater freedom to use cost effectively what you produce. I mean, new things are coming along, as we've all heard, batteries that you might use to work with time of use rates, so that you're using electricity at a lower off-peak rate and selling that expensive electricity to the utility at that peak rate. Or you might be charging your electrical vehicle when it's really cheap. All of these things you can have some control over in your own home if you want to. On the other hand, if you do cut back and you're overproducing, the utility will be taking that all in a rolling increasing credit that you really don't get back until you, I guess, you leave or die or close the account somehow. The big point right now, though, is don't worry too much about it. When you decide to install solar, you still have the net metering option, you still have the sell all option, you still have the federal tax credit. And if you're a farm and this is a not residential use, you can work with Amanda for the 25% REAP grant. And again, putting those all together in a package, as we did in the beginning, is going to give you really great payback. Maybe not 4 years, but probably 6 or 7 in for a system that has a 25+ year life. The last bit of the puzzle, CPACE, Amanda wanted me to talk about. It's really not my field of expertise. However, it's a great program because it's backed by the Green Bank and overseen so that you can trust it to approach your problem sensibly, in the respect that they will look very carefully at what you are going to save in energy with what your installers are telling you they're going to install. And when they do that, based on their metrics, which are very strict, they will assure you that if they give you the loan, that the savings from energy is going to offset over time easily the amount of money that you borrowed or the additional payments that they're going to add. It's called property assessed clean energy because those charges will be added as a property tax assessment and be paid that way. So what this does, if you're a building or a farm owner, is you have nothing out of pocket, but at the same time, you vastly improved your property in a way that's going to cost you nothing, because it's not going to be any more than you were paying for electricity in the first place. There are some little hitches, of course. Your town has to be signed on to the CPACE program. Some towns are not. Many are, many more than were in the past. But you could just Google CPACE, go to the Connecticut CPACE, and they've got a map of all of the towns and who participates in the program. And they also have really great people working there. So there's a number, again, you can Google it. They're also prominently featured on Energize CT on that website. My last takeaway is, if you're interested in solar and you want to put the package that I described together, first thing to do, I would say, is consult with Amanda. Make sure that your farm is eligible for the REAP program. Then you consult with a solar installer to determine your eligibility for that REAP, because it can't be a residential use, or it's going to be prorated somehow or not allowed. Then consult with your tax advisor, maybe that's you, to see how much of that federal tax credit that you can capture from your solar investment. And of course, if you're looking for financing, see if CPACE is available in your community and line those guys up. Again, it'll be a new program in 2022, but it will still be a generous one. And it'll have great payback if you can put all of these things together. And that's all I have. Apologies for the frog in the throat, just came upon me. And if you have any questions, let me know or send me an email. And that's it.
Thanks, Ray. Any suggestion for folks? You guys specifically concentrate on Litchfield County. So if a farm's not in Litchfield County, what recommendation of website would you suggest for them to find other contractors?
Again, the Energize CT website has a list of all of the people who were eligible installers under the RCIP program, the Residential Installation Program. There are other people operating that you can probably find on EnergySage.com. I don't know if people know that. EnergySage, S-A-G-E, spelled as one word, .com. And they have good basic information about solar. And my advice to everybody, I teach a class called the Intelligent Homeowner's Guide to Installing Solar. Hey, it's a lot of money. Get a second opinion, get another contractor, and pay attention to how much attention he pays to you. I would also really believe in going local. Solar has very few problems, but if the person is in the next town over or in your neighborhood, to me, that's always a plus. And that's it. You know, it's just apply those intelligent tools you would do if you were doing any other kind of contracting work. Start with Energize CT, I think.
Okay. And
Sure.
Solar Connecticut, do they have a listing, Ray, or that?
I believe that's their listing.
Okay.
I believe that to get on that list, you have to have been an eligible RCIP installer. And that might not hold anymore because the Green Bank is taking, their RSIP residential program is also kind of disappearing and segueing into this overall new program that's going to be run by the utilities. So we didn't get into that because we're not talking residential here, but
I think it's a good point though, Ray, for some of our family farms, when they inquire to us,
yeah,
the load is really more residential based. And so we would encourage them to seek out the residential programs.
yes,
If it's not 51% or more basically of farm use,
yep,
we're not going to be able to assist on more of a business commercial side through the REAP program.
absolutely. And that also plays right into the program shifting here, because if they stick with the family farm residential, they probably have much more latitude in the size of the system they can install. That's going to be up to 25K under the new rules. And also they can opt for that new, whatever the net metering option, which I think then they don't worry about the electricity costs going to 27, 30 cents, 40 cents, whatever. They're protected because they're producing what they're using. I think in the end, it's going to be the agribusinesses and the 030 rate people who choose, strictly commercial, who go for the sell all tariff, and it'll be everybody else will opt for the net metering as they have in the past.
Great. Appreciate it, Ray.
Sure.
Not sure if anyone has questions for you or not. I'm not seeing any at the moment.
Put them all to sleep.
If anybody does have questions, feel free to unmute and, ask away. If not, I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight. I'd like to thank each of our speakers. We will, once we have this recording posted on our YouTube page, you will receive through Eventbrite a link to that YouTube page. And then we'll also share with you our speakers' emails in case you want to contact them directly for more information. But with that, if there's no questions, I'd like to thank you all and wish you a good night.
Very good. Thank you. See you, Peter.
Thank you, Amanda.
And,
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.